Did you know that there's a faster and cheaper way of building properties here in the Costa del Sol? Well, you will soon. I'm Chris Cassidy, this is the Nusun Network, and I'm here in Marbella, joined by Eric Morris of Swiftbuild. So Eric, lovely to have you on. Tell the audience and tell myself who you are and what it is you do.
Yeah, so my name's Eric, been living in Spain for 23 years, and my background is essentially in sales and marketing. Had a few different sales marketing agencies and an AI company that I sold my shares in last year. And now I am a co-founder of Swiftbuild, which is a modular construction company that operates in Spain and Portugal.
Awesome. And how did that come about, Swiftbuild?
So when I sold my shares in the company, I was talking to my dad, who's been involved in real estate for over 30 years, and he had a modular company before. And we were looking at another way of approaching the modular market.
Okay.
So we spoke to different developers and architects, and we asked them what it is that they were looking for. They all said that they wanted a fast and affordable way of constructing.
Yep.
And if there was sustainability, it was an added bonus.
Okay.
So we went into the market across Europe, had a look at different manufacturers, and we found our ideal manufacturer, which is located in Belgium.
In Belgium, okay. And you mentioned sustainable. What is your idea of sustainability? Because I hear different developers, they've got different views, but what is your view?
Yeah, I think when I joined the market, I think my idea of sustainability was basically using sustainable materials and trying to reduce waste. I think as time went on, my ideas kind of changed, where it's actually where you're building, why you're building, and how you're building. So now we're manufacturing all the homes inside of a state-of-the-art factory using machines, reducing waste. We're also using sustainable materials that are able to biodegrade. And on top of that, we're using less transport as well. So we're also reducing emissions. So I think overall, it's not just thinking about individual things, it's the entire process of how you're actually building.
And it's quite funny because some of the clients that I deal with now, before it was more about the price and the location, but people are actually starting to ask me questions about the build material, where it's been built, even what the bricks are, which you never had before. But you do start to feel, so it feels like it's a great time to have Swiftbuild and to be looking at that element. And I think there's a massive need in the market, especially in Spain,
Yeah, for sure. I think there's definitely a need in the market. People are looking for more sustainable homes. They're looking to reduce their carbon footprint.
Yeah.
But they're also looking for fast and affordable ways of doing this.
Exactly. And I think as well, I'm just off the head, you're mentioning it's built in a factory.
Yeah.
It's a wee bit different because normally it's there's a lot of brickwork and it's multiple different people doing that. But in a factory, you're probably going to have better quality assurance. Things are going to have to be in a certain spec and everything, and it's going to be consistent, I would imagine.
Yeah, for sure. So the way it works is you would send us your plans for your development or your home. We would then manufacture that with millimeter precision inside the factory. And when everything comes on site, we assemble everything like Lego bricks.
Right, okay.
So it means you can actually build properties in 50% faster time periods.
Faster, 50% faster.
Yeah.
That's massive.
So you can build, for example, like a 300 square meter villa in under 6 months.
Wow, that's huge. Especially, it's one of the things, I think speed, obviously people want their house faster, right?
Yeah.
But for investors, for example, they don't want to be having their money stuck in something for 2 years, right? And then maybe longer if it's delayed.
Yeah.
To know they've only got it there for 6 months. And, if they want to then refinance that later on, they can. I think that's a massive benefit.
I think what we're seeing at the moment in the market and in the Costa del Sol, but throughout Spain, is there's a shortage in labour.
Yeah.
Build times are normally 6 to 18 months behind schedule. And this is kind of where we fit in that gap. We build fast, we build on time and within budget.
Yeah.
And for investors, if they use traditional construction compared to us, if they're to build 2 developments using traditional, they would get a third one for free using modular.
You're from Ireland, you've lived in Spain a long time.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've looked back, because it's been a while since you've probably been over in Ireland or living in Ireland, but have you got visibility of the differences and I'm not talking about what you do now, but just in general, because in terms of the build quality in Ireland, for example, compared to Spain in general, have you got an idea of the differences that you've seen?
Yeah, I think using traditional construction in Spain, I think everyone's experienced the damp going up the walls in the winter and then homes being really cold and then really hot in summer.
Yes.
So there's no real balance. I think
Yeah.
in Ireland, the homes are built to a better quality using traditional. They have a bit more insulation.
Timber frame and stuff.
Exactly.
A bit different. I hear these comments from people from the UK, from Ireland, about the quality here. And you're right, because as I've actually in my previous podcast, I had someone talking about damp proofing and moisture control and they went into loads of detail. And there's so much you need to do. But taking that into consideration, is there anything that you do in terms of this building, this sort of new standard of building, that stops that or helps that issue?
Yeah, so the way that we build our home is we use different materials such as wood, grass insulation as well.
Okay.
And we also use like an open build system, so it allows the property to breathe.
Right.
So you're not actually absorbing the moisture as you would in brick.
Ah, okay.
So that also significantly reduces it. And if we're building on screw piles, which some people may not know about, but essentially screws, they can go into the ground. So it replaces the use of foundations.
Right,
Once the
okay.
property is elevated off the ground, and you won't have any moisture.
That's interesting. So I'm just trying to imagine this, right?
Yeah.
So you've got, obviously it's going to be on, there's going to still be on dirt, right? You're going to have some to level it out.
Yeah.
I'm just trying to think of how that would even look. And it's a steel plate?
Yeah, so essentially you would...
Talk me through it.
Yeah, so what you'd have is you would have screws going into the ground, and
Yep.
then you would build either steel or wooden beams across it, and
Okay.
you'd start building the house from there.
Ah, okay.
So it's elevated off the ground slightly.
Right, and that just,
It helps reduce the moisture because it's not on the ground. It allows the property to breathe.
why, it just feels like a no-brainer. Like, why has it not always been that way?
Yeah, I think the only limitations with it at the moment is that on certain terrains you have to have like the right soil and bits and pieces. Parts of Spain it's fantastic for that. Down here, not so much because of the
Right.
soil samples, but it's used quite a lot in Portugal.
So a lot of that then maybe depends on the terrain and
Yeah.
how viable that is. And if you get any ways around that at all, if that maybe it's not quite right, or
If it's not quite right, then we typically just go back to typical
the typical
foundations,
the
yeah.
typical way, but you'll still be able to do the stuff that you've done in the factory, you'll still be able to do that, just the foundations will be a little bit
Yeah,
different.
exactly.
Got you. Ah, okay, that's really interesting. Because I'm just trying to imagine, right, you're pre-construction it in a factory. And you know, you'll see over the Costa del Sol, there's a lot of these bricks, a lot of bricks, right?
Yeah.
And obviously with that, there's a lot of, you've got to stack them all up, and there's loads of little bits that dampness can get through, air can leave, etc. But I'm just trying to think about yours, because I'm imagining it's going to be these bigger areas, so it's going to be less, I don't know, I'm just trying to understand how that would work.
Yeah, so because we're using wood, it's all a solid panel.
Right,
and
okay.
we can build them up to 13 meters long in length. So everything basically would come on site on the back of trucks. We would then take the panels off the back of the trucks and start assembling them, literally like Lego bricks.
Got you. Okay, so it's wood.
Yeah, it's wood.
Ah, because I have. There's been another company that I've seen that just do it. They build these massive concrete, like slabs.
Yeah.
They're huge, right? And they just lump them together. But you're doing it as wood.
Yeah, we're doing it as wood. We find it's a lot more adaptable and we can customize the designs a lot easier on hold. So for clients going forward in the future, if they ever want to make modifications to their homes, it's very easy to do.
Of course, it's a bit more difficult with concrete.
Yeah.
Concrete slabs.
For sure.
That's really interesting. And you've mentioned it takes 50%. It's 50% faster.
Yeah.
To do that. Why are you seeing that speed? What is it? I know what you're doing differently, but why does it make it faster? Because you're still going to have to take the stuff over.
Yep.
You're still going to have to, I'm assuming, use brickwork or something?
No, so we would basically just use normal foundations.
Right.
And then what would end up happening is once you send us the designs, we stick them to the CAD machines inside the factory. We produce the home. If it's a 300 square meter villa, we get produced in one day inside the factory. And then we ship everything from Belgium down to Spain.
Yeah.
At that point, our assembly team comes on site and they would assemble the home. You'd be able to assemble that home on site in under a week.
Right, okay.
And it's got all the doors, windows, plumbing, etc. done already
But
in the factory.
this is what I'm trying to get to, right? But is the house fully wood?
Yeah, the house is fully wood.
Fully wood. And do you see is there any issues with that at all? Any problems that you see with just having a wood house? I'm thinking about maybe, we don't get a lot of rainfall here,
Yeah,
but I'm assuming there's things you've done to protect
yeah, for sure.
against that.
Yeah, like the materials that we use in our wood panels, they are water resistant, they're fire resistant, and it allows us to build a better quality home compared to brick.
Right.
I think at the moment there's an education to be had in the Spanish market.
Yes.
It's not typically used, but if you look at Scandinavian countries, wooden houses are more common. It's like 40 or 50% of the homes there are wood.
Yeah. And I know that we're saying that it's obviously it's cheaper. You've said it's cheaper to build as well. I have noticed the prices of wood going up a lot.
Yeah.
And I don't, obviously, I think we're saying it's still going to be a lot, even regardless of the rises in the wood costs.
Yep.
It's still a lot cheaper than going the traditional route. Is that right?
Yeah, it's a lot more affordable, and also you're using a lot less manpower as
Right.
well. So in terms of having people on site, etc., it's a small team. It's not a team of 50 people.
Yeah, so you mentioned about some of the challenges that you've got, and you mentioned about the soil and maybe the foundations, but you've got to work around, which is great. And you sort of brushed over a little bit about the education on this type of development in this area, in this region. But I want to go into a bit more detail in that. Can you explain what sort of education you're talking about, maybe some of those challenges and what you're going to be doing about that as well?
Yeah, for sure. I think the Spanish market at the moment is still in its infancy in terms of off-site construction.
Yep.
I think the mentality still is use traditional. Let's do that because they know how to do it. They've been doing it for 200 years.
Yep.
I think where the market is being educated at the moment is developers are in need of faster, more affordable building methods.
Yep.
And now they're starting to look for solutions in Spain. At the moment, there's a few factories in Spain that are doing it, but most of them are in Central or Eastern Europe.
Okay.
So I think really it's just educating them on what the differences are, how it affects the actual build schedules and costs, and then making that happen.
I mean, you would think just saying stuff like, it's faster and it's cheaper and it's more sustainable and everything, that would be enough. But what sort of pushback are you getting on it? I'm assuming there is some pushback from some developers that you've had, and what is the sort of typical response?
Yeah, I think the main sort of pushback we've had is hesitation on something new, something innovative that they haven't necessarily seen on the coast or in Spain.
Yeah.
I think it's a growing market. There's a lot more wooden homes being built in Spain, a lot of big developments being built out of wood as well.
Yeah.
And I think really it's just a proof of concept and showing them stuff that has been built and that it can work.
Yep.
I think that's really the education point as well, and showing them the cost savings and time savings.
So probably getting a few over here, using that, and that should hopefully help with the learning curve.
Yeah.
Quite quickly, because they can go and see it. They can go in and look at
Yeah,
it.
they can go kick it, jump up and down.
Yeah, test it, shake it.
Exactly.
All right, okay. I mean, I can see it working, and I think for me, selling properties, to be able to say to people it's going to be ready in, I don't know, 6 months or maybe 9 or whatever it would be compared to 2 years,
Yeah.
would be fantastic for me. I think I would be selling a lot more, and also maybe cheaper, as well. I think there's a lot of conversation here about the prices, coming unsustainable for people, because they're just going up and up and up, and a lot of that's with the building costs shooting up, materials shooting up, and this could maybe start to help with that situation.
Yeah, for sure. Like I think a lot of the feedback we're getting from developers at the moment is costs for traditional are way out of sorts. It doesn't make sense anymore. The time frames are rather than 2 years, it's 3 years or even 4 years. We've heard from some developers, and they don't have any control over when they can actually build because there's such a shortage of labor.
Exactly.
So I think that's kind of where we step in, and we can kind of help regulate that. We can do what we say we're going to do,
Yeah.
and then make sure that there's the availability for affordable homes that there is a need.
And I think even just from people who've got some land, small developers, right? Because they've got the biggest challenge for me, right? Because they don't have economies of scale, right? So their costs are a lot higher. And I've had a couple who've got land, and they've asked me, can we build something on it? I've said you can, but that area and the pricing around there, the time you build it and get all the materials, etc. And I'm thinking about standard construction, you're probably not going to make a lot of money the time you sell it, right? Because there's a cap on that area. And it's crazy. It's just a crazy thing because before you could always have a bit of land, you could always build and sell it and make a profit. But now it's getting really difficult. But this could actually help them, what you're saying.
Yeah, for sure. Like at the moment, our partner's building over 1,500 homes a year out of their factory, and they're looking to double that over the next 2 years.
Yeah.
So the economies of scale are there, the pricing advantages are there for customers to be had, and there's also the speed. And you know you're going to get quality builds materials.
Yeah. And one of the things I think as well is some of the developers, they look for finance, development finance
Yep.
on the properties, right? And the developers are normally looking at that. They're like, okay, how long do you need it for? And they're like, well, 2 years. And I wonder if it would be a simpler yes to give you the development finance if you're going to say it's going to be ready in 9 months.
Yep.
You know, and obviously your interest rates as a developer are going to be, it's going to be easier to manage, you know. You're not going to have to worry about too much changes down the line that could push your project out.
For sure.
Because it's built in a factory, the quality's there, it's a simple process to get that property up and running. And everything comes pre-connected, right?
Yeah, everything comes with the cabling done inside, and our team assemble everything, make sure that everything is done, all their doors, windows, everything is done on site. We look to do turnkey projects.
Yep.
That's what developers are after nowadays.
Exactly. And I think just that alone is massive. So I might contact you. I've got a couple of people with land right now
Perfect.
facing a problem, and I might reach out to you about this because I think that could be an answer for them. We've spoke about the challenges overcoming them. We've spoke about what you're doing at the moment and everything else. But just can you talk about just the property types that you see? Because when I think, and this is me just uneducated, thinking about wooden sort of properties built with wood, I'm thinking small chalets,
Okay.
right? But what is the type of properties that you can build?
So using our system, we can build whatever property you want. We can do villas, we can do townhouses, and we can also do large apartment blocks. So we can go up to 22 floors in pure wood,
Right.
without using any concrete whatsoever.
Okay.
And it all comes together very, very quickly.
Wow. So pretty much everything.
Everything.
So you can completely replace the whole way of building.
Yep.
Out here.
Turning it on its head.
Well, I would love to be part of that journey as well. And yeah, I can see it doing amazingly well here.
It's definitely going to be an interesting journey, and I think it's only going to grow.
And where are you sort of looking? I think you mentioned, you're seeing this in Portugal, and what areas are you covering?
Yeah, in terms of where our main focus is at the moment, it's in Spain and Portugal.
Right.
Nationally across both countries, and then with the idea to expand into Ireland and the UK going forward.
Right, okay. And are you seeing any differences sort of between the acceptance in Portugal compared to here?
Yeah, I think in Portugal, they are more used to building in wood. It's been happening for the past 10, 15 years there, where in Spain, it's kind of only been happening the past maybe 5 to 7 years.
Yeah.
So it's a few years behind, but I think the market is now changing.
Yeah.
I was up in Madrid yesterday at one of the rebuild conferences there, and on the way down there was 2 or 3 large developments being built out of wood with 400 units each.
Wow.
So it's there, it's changing, and
Yeah.
I think the market over the next 5, 10 years, you're going to see a lot more off-site homes and wooden homes being built.
Yeah, I think as well. I mean, obviously we hear it in the news a lot. We hear about the shortage of properties, affordable properties, especially for the people who are from Spain and live in Spain, and maybe they can't afford to buy those properties anymore. So the government are mainly focusing on penalising people, penalising the owners rather than actually building houses to help the people, right? And this could be a way to do that. This could be something. It's relatively, I don't want to say cheap, but it's far cheaper than that. It's faster. And that could be a way to tackle that crisis, potentially, that they're talking about.
Yeah, for sure. And we have complete control over the qualities of the materials we use in the factory. So depending on the scale you want, whether it's high-end luxury or you want more affordable housing, we can accommodate that.
You mentioned briefly about finance, and obviously I said that for developers, small developers, some of them need to get finance on the build. They might use a land and go to the banks. They might use that as security. And then they'll get that, and obviously they're worrying because sometimes it's a bridging loan they're getting, and the interest rates are crazy. And if it's delayed and they miss it,
Yep.
They're under a lot of pressure, a lot more than they have to be, because building is stressful normally. But I think based on what you're saying, they don't have to take it out as long. I would expect there to be maybe some guarantees about the quality and everything else. But can you just talk to me about that whole, are the banks allowing mortgages, etc., on these properties? Are they allowing development finance? Is there anything you're offering as well?
Yeah, in terms of banks, they're happy to give mortgages on wooden properties. It's not an issue at all. They treat it as a normal property.
Okay.
And in terms of development finance, yeah, you can use development finance, and the period of time you're borrowing the money for is significantly shorter. It's for a 6 month period rather than 18 or 24 months.
Yeah.
So the interest rates you're saving on that is massive. It can change your project from being unprofitable to very, very profitable.
100%, it could. And what about, is there anything that you offer?
Yeah, in terms of what we're doing, so for developers that have a track record, we can offer financing using bank guarantees.
Okay.
So they would make an initial payment, for example, of 30%, and then the rest of it could be financed on a bank guarantee until turnkey.
Okay. So you would do that work, and then once it's handed over,
Yeah,
then ultimately they pay the rest.
exactly.
For new developers, that's a fantastic thing. For some of the big developers as well, right? Especially if it's a developer, maybe they've got 20 properties to build. They know the time scales, and I think the sellability of that for somebody who's wanting to buy one of those properties, it just makes it much easier. You know it's going to get delivered a lot quicker.
Yeah.
It's been developed in a factory and everything else. There's not so much that can go wrong in comparison to what we experience here in Spain. We don't, not all the time, but sometimes you get a lot of rainfall and it can just happen quite quickly.
Yeah.
And then work will stop, the ground will get a bit of a mess, etc. But I'm assuming that would stop a lot of those headaches.
Yeah, it stops that completely. Like, we're not treating the work site as a playground. Everything gets done in the factory, whether it's rain or shine. We can still manufacture in the factory.
I'll do that.
Everything comes on site, and it all gets assembled.
Yeah.
So you're not permitted to, like, the weather delays or some sort of freak accident or natural disaster that happens once in a while.
Yeah.
So yeah, in terms of that side of it, it's a lot more secure.
Got you. And see, just on the sort of sustainability, well, not really that, more just about the economical aspects of, if you own one of these properties when they're built.
Yeah.
What is there heating systems, and a lot of the developers here have got an aerothermia. They'll put, is that similar to what you've put in, or do you put something different in?
Yeah, so we can add in different things depending on what the customer wants. But
Right.
for example, we can use heat pumps.
Okay.
So what that could do is it could actually cool and heat your property on the floor. And
Okay.
it would also heat your boiler as well.
Right.
But what we're typically seeing in our homes is there's a 40% reduction in energy costs.
Wow.
And because of the materials we're using, over a 30-day period, if you had no heating or anything on, you'd only see a 1 degree difference between day and night.
Is that right? 30 days?
Yeah, 1 degree difference.
Especially a lot of the concrete buildings here, it can get so hot and so cold very, very quickly.
Yeah.
Especially in the evenings, it can get super cold, and then it can be roasting hot, and you're constantly having to shut and close your doors, etc., your windows.
Yeah, for sure. You're definitely seeing that in traditional construction. I think a misconception people have is when they think of wood, they think it's going to be very hot or too hot in the summer, and that's completely the opposite. Because we allow the building to breathe, you're actually regulating the air flow in there.
Got you. And just in terms of the process, you briefly mentioned it earlier, right? So I'm assuming they come to you, you'll sit down, you'll go through with what they want, and you'll have some sort of a consultation.
Yeah.
And how long does that typically take? So obviously you've got a keen customer, they're ready to go. Mm-hmm. They come to you, and you go through the design element. How long does it sort of take to get to that point where you're both happy?
Yeah. So basically the way it would work is you would send us your architectural plans.
Yep.
And then from there, we would take that, we give it to our engineering team. They would transform that into a CAD design.
Okay.
That's typically the longest period in our production. Could be maximum of 2 months' time.
2 months, okay.
And then from there, we manufacture everything in the factory to millimeter precision. And if it's, for example, a 300 meter square villa, we can do that in 1 day.
Okay.
So it's pretty quick in terms of that. And then we agree with the customer in terms of the types of doors, windows, paint, facade, etc. that they want.
Yeah. And then from there, it's the build time, which could take what?
Yeah. So from there, once it's manufactured, we ship it down to here. It takes about 7 days.
Yep.
And then for a villa, for example, we can assemble that on site in under 5 days.
5 days. I would love to see that.
Yeah.
I would love to see that happening. And just in terms of any projects that you've got lined up here, or you're maybe starting to get the process in, is there any that you can talk about here or Portugal or anywhere?
Yeah, there's some that we've done previously in Portugal, like single villas and bits and pieces like that. In Spain, we're now at the stage where we're entering the market and we are tendering for different projects, ranging from 20 villas to 140 apartments.
Wow.
And we're just at that cusp now. We're about to sign contracts for those and
Right.
grow in the market.
So in the next 5 years, for example, where do you sort of see your business? It feels like you're getting going and you're getting things in progress. But in the next 5 years, where do you see Swiftbuild?
I think we're probably going to be the market leader in
Right.
Spain for this. I think in terms of the setup that we have scalability with our manufacturing partner.
Yep.
We have the financing in place, and there's a need in the market, and that need is only growing. So I think over the next 5 years, there's a lot of room for growth, and I think going forward, it's all looking pretty good.
Awesome. Listen, Eric, I could speak to you for ages about this. I think it's a fascinating subject, especially the wooden building properties with wood. It makes sense to me. Everything you've said makes sense. It's faster, it's more economical, and actually it's more environmentally friendly as well. And it's cheaper.
It is.
One of the really important factors. But I'll have you on another time. Hopefully in 5 year time. We don't wait that long, but I'm looking forward to seeing your progress here in the Costa del Sol and hopefully making a massive difference to the build and everything else. And hopefully I can sell a lot of those properties for you
I look forward to it.
as well. Thank you.
Cheers.
Pleasure.
Thanks, Chris.
Thank you.